because he humbled himself. He was willing to give himself to the Lord. And then in chapter 23, as we begin to read, he starts to then begin to renew the covenant. In other words, he's bringing the children of Judah back to God. And he thoroughly cleanses the nation of Judah. In previous chapters, we've read about kings, and it always says they did not remove the high places. And in King Josiah's life, he removed everything and brought them back totally to God. And as I was reading this, there was something that I realized as I entered into chapter 23 and verse 25, and I'm going to read this here to you. It says, and like unto him was there no king before him that turned to the Lord with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his might, according to all the law of Moses. Neither after him arose there any like him. Now, I find that an interesting verse and the writing here, because it says that there was no king like him before him that served the Lord and turned his heart to God with his soul and all his might to follow the word of God like he did. That means he followed God closer than what David did. Now you think about that. He was totally sold out to God. He removed all the wrong, the wrong worship, the wrong types of people in their country, and totally removed everything. And this spoke to me because that's what we need for our country. That's what we need for our families. That's what we need for our church, our lives. Is we need to renew ourselves to Him. Look and read this today at what He did and what He removed and what He took back out, and He turned the people to worship God. And that's what our life is to be, is to turn people to worship God. One, they get saved, that we be a gospel giver, but then two, that we're a disciple maker, that our life is lived to be able to do something for God. And that's what challenged me this morning as I read this, because even though, and I want you to, as you read this, you're going to realize something. This is an incredible step, but it did not change God's mind for what was going to happen to the children of Judah. They still were going to go into captivity. They were still going to pay for the decisions and the choices that they had made, and they wouldn't turn. And God's like, this is great, Josiah. You're not going to see this in your lifetime. But He didn't change His mind. Sometimes we have to deal with our circumstances. We have to deal with our choices. And that really spoke to me, because in my life I'm thinking, okay, boy, that makes every choice and every decision I make, an important one, to be served for God. And I need to be totally renewed, totally committed to God, to follow Him. And I need to be willing to stand up. He was willing to stand up and to speak out. And he didn't just remove things. I mean, this is pretty detailed what he did. What he did to the priest of the high places, what he did to all of these people. He totally renewed the people. His leadership took them to follow God. Now, we see this as we finish the book of 2 Kings, that his son did evil in the sight of God. And the next king and the next king. And then we see them taken off into, Nebuchadnezzar comes, and they're taken off into captivity. And Babylon takes over. And we see the conclusion of 2 Kings and the prophecy fulfilled. And it made me think this. It made me realize Galatians chapter 6 and verse 7. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. That made me realize in my life. No, I'm not worried. Everybody else's life. As a pastor, I'm concerned about our church. And I'm concerned about my family as a father and as a husband. But ultimately, it's my life. And where am I with God? And that challenged me this morning because I want my life to be something for God. I want to be used for Him. And as we get into First Chronicles, First and Second Chronicles are a repeat of the Kings and of First and Second Samuel. It gives more detail into some of the kings and what they did, but it's literally a written affirmation of what took place for the kings. And so we're going to go, when we get into First and Second Chronicles, we're going to revisit some of these kings, and we're going to see some more detail about them. But I'm challenged today, as we conclude Second Kings, I want to be renewed to God. I want God to be first in my life, and I want to be like Josiah. I don't want there to be anybody else before me or after me that's completely committed to God. That's what I want for my life. It's truly a burden. Life's short. We don't have a lot of time to do what we need to do. None of us control our destiny or know when time is over. Our destination is secure in the fact that we're saved and we're going to go to heaven. If you're not saved, you need to get saved. But may I say to you this morning, can we renew ourselves? Read these chapters. Read about Josiah here. Read about what he did and how he committed himself to God. And he committed himself based upon the Word of God. And let's walk with God every day. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock when we walk.